And welcome back. So this is my inventory here. Now, as you can probably see, it's very packed. We have filled up the inventory. Now, if you're wondering what any of these things are, we'll obviously go for it. Now, this can apply to people using two-handed or people using dual-wield, but for the sake of this, I have two-handed, so I'm just going to go through it. So the most important thing you want to remember at Nex is, and the easiest thing you want to, the easiest way to kill it, and the most important thing you want to remember is Nex will always pray mage first. Okay, so when you go into the kill, whenever she first sprays, the first prayer she uses will be magic. As a result of that, people find range is best used against her. Now, don't worry about having your armor or having your weapons perked up and stuff like that. Really, honestly, it does not make that much of a difference. But if you've got it, it can help you quite massively. So even if you've got stuff perked, even if it's not perked, it doesn't mean to say you can't solo Nex. So don't worry about that. So I'm going to be using the Ascension Crossbows, and now for the Ascension Crossbows you want to get yourself some Ascension Bolts. If you don't know what they look like, type in the GEASC, and it's the Ascension Bolts, and they cost about 120 GP each. They can also be disassembled into, useful stuff, so, maybe if you're looking at doing an invention anytime soon, get onto them, because they're cheap and you can stockpile them. So, moving on from that, what have I got in my inventory? Well, I've got the Ascension Crossbows, I've got the Amulet of Souls, I've got the Reaper Necklace, and I'll get onto why I've got both of them in my inventory in a minute. The armor, I've got this blue stuff, it's called Serenic. It's very useful. It's very useful for the Zaros phase, and again, I'll get onto that. I've got some Tolva boots in there. Again, I'll get onto that in a second. I've got Tirana Quiver. I've got different rings. I've got Void. I've got a Takar Cull. I've got a Hybrid Cape, I've got another ring, an Excalibur, I have a shield, a dark bow, a sign of life, a god book, and some phoenix necklaces. Now, for those of you that are true beginners to this, I would recommend, strongly recommend, that if you don't have a lot of money but you're trying to learn Nex, and you have a Ring of Death, use the Ring of Death. Obviously, charge it up. Don't need to go above 50%. Charge it up, so if you do die, obviously you don't have to worry about paying for a death because you've already done that in advance. So that's the first thing you want to be using. So let's put that on. Now, don't worry about in terms of stats and things like that. We'll get on to why you need to have different things in a second. So that's that. Now, if you do have the Ascension Crossbows, obviously put them on. If you have a Nox bow, that's fine. You can use that, and go ahead with that. Now, if you've done a few solo attempts before and you have a gist of what you're doing, what's good, then I would recommend you use a Reaper Necklace, simply because it will provide you with a better chance at actually damaging Nex and doing more stuff to her. If again, maybe you've got some experience at Nex in terms of you had a few solo attempts but not actually got your first kill, use an Amulet of Souls, because if you don't want to take as much damage, again, for those people that have a bit more experience but and know what they're doing, you could use a Souls, but if you know what you're doing in terms of each phase and you just haven't got your kill yet, take a Reaper, because in the long run it will work out better. Okay, now we're not going to use the Serenic straight away. We're actually going to use that in the Zaros phase. The reason being is because on Zaros phase, Nex hits a lot harder, she has a lot more higher defense, and we just need to survive and we need to actually get her down. So we're going to leave that for now. Now we have a Tyrannowind Quiver 4. If you don't have a Quiver, I strongly recommend you get one, because it can provide you with emergency teleports if you're quick enough, but that is why I've got one of these rings in my inventory, and I'll show you why. And you've also got a Ring of Death, so effectively that saves you from having to pay. But the reason why I would recommend getting a Tyrannowind Quiver, it doesn't have to be number 4, it can be number 3, number 2, number 1. The reason why I recommend it is because you can then get yourself A, prayer bonus, and B, you can store your bolts in it, and obviously C, you've got your teleports. So it is a win-win situation, okay? So let's put that on. Now, the ring. We have a Ring of Death on, so we're going to go with the assumption that we're new to Nex, we don't really know what we're doing. If you're more experienced, but you've just been unlucky in getting your first kill, you have your Asylum Surgeon, you don't mind so much about deaths, you're confident you're not going to die, put on the Asylum Surgeon, because in the long run, this is the better ring to use. So for now, we're just going to leave it. If, however, you're not confident and you use the Asylum Surgeon and you die, do bear in mind you have to protect this ring, because it will be a 500k cost otherwise. So it does kind of screw you in the foot. Okay, so bear that in mind. Now, Void. This is the dog's bollocks at Nex, and basically that just means it's the best thing you can use. So I would recommend you get superior Void armor, simply because you will not have a cat in hell's chance on Nex otherwise. Okay, so we're going to put that on. I recommend the range set, again, because range is the optimum style to be used, because Nex will pray mage. So obviously get the full set, don't worry about its armor and stuff like that, it's got absolutely wank armor, so you're going to get destroyed either way, but we're going to get around that. Now, capes. If you're maxed, use your max cape. If you're comped, use your comp cape. If you don't have either of those capes, like myself, if you have a 120 cape, because they look cooler, use one of them. If not, just use a skill cape. Reason why you want to use a skill cape is because we'll get onto the boots in a second, is why they're linked together. Using a skill cape will render Nex unable to melee distance you as much as she possibly could. Reason why you don't want her to MD you is because on the shadow phase, and I'll explain in that part of the video, if she melees you on shadow phase, you're finished. So put that cape on. And lastly, the boots. The reason why we want to put our boots on is because Nex will, as I'm going to say in Shadow, she'll melee distance you, and I will show you what that is. So that is the main set of gear right there. So remember, you got your Void, you got your Sentinel, you got your Noxbow, you got your Quiver, you got your Souls, or your Reaper, depending on how good you are and experienced you feel, and then obviously you got your Ring of Death or the Asylum Surgeon, okay, and of course Constitution cape or any other cape you've got. Make sure it is a skill cape or a hybrid cape, okay. So it's not set to one style. So that's that. Now, I shall see you in the next part of the video.